Oi, what's the best game where you get to eat pie? What's the best game where you play a dead guy? You'll find out in VG247's podcast. Here, what's the best game where you swing from a rope? And what's the best game where you batter the Pope? Sesame Street 2. Like I said, you will find out in this here podcast. Hello and welcome to VG247's Best Games Ever podcast, where we attempt each week to find the best example of a game within a very sort of weird category that Tom has made up after about 10 minutes of arguing on the Slack. This week, we're looking for the best game where you don't actually do much. I've gotten into the habit of trying to imagine what I would pick if I was a contestant and not just having to sort of listen to everyone. And I actually don't know. I can't think of a game where you don't... I can't think of a game where you sit and sort of don't do much apart from maybe, I don't know, do you do much in Civilization? You're just kind of sitting there, aren't you? But yeah, this is going to be an interesting one because I genuinely have no idea how the pitches are going to go. We are joined today by Editor-in-Chief Tom Orry.
Hello, I thought you had a good way to segue into a really mean joke about me with this topic, to be honest.
No. Well, I mean, I would have done, but I haven't had time to write it, so we're just...
Just imagine it. Imagine what you'd have said.
Just imagine, well, I would have made some kind of gag about you being born idle, or... I mean, yeah, that's a bit mean-spirited for me. I wouldn't have done that.
Really?
And I really thought that was where that was going. I really did.
We're also joined by Associate Editor Alex Donaldson and my guides writer Kelsey Rayner.
Hello.
How is everyone? It's freezing in the UK, and I'm once again in my cat hoodie, which
I am in a very similar one. I had my heating fixed yesterday, so I'm pretty good right now.
I love that this is modern Britain. Everyone's just sitting here in some kind of snood, and it doesn't like undermine my authority at all to have cat ears on my jumper. Okay, all right, we're gonna get into it. So first of all, Tom, what's your pick?
Well, I came up with this topic, right? And I thought this is a good it's quite a clever one, actually. It's quite a good one to try and really think about. Well, I struggled for a while, even though I came up with it, because it's actually like what is actually not doing much. Like there's obviously most games you just click some buttons, right? So it's not actually like you're doing that much in the first place. Yeah. I thought about doing something like really like smarmy and clever, like Bill Cliff would do, like a Sony first party game that's full of cutscenes and like you don't do much. It kind of go along the ride.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
I know, that's really bothering me.
I thought about doing something like that, and I thought, no, that's not in the spirit of this podcast. So I thought, and I thought actually it came. I went with in the end Vampire Survivors, which is a game I'm very much into at the moment. Like it was like. I think it was a big deal, like maybe in the middle of the year when it came out on Steam. Yeah. Then it came to Game Pass at the start of November, and I've been playing it since then. And I didn't really know much about it. You look at the screenshots, you think it's just a load of pixelated mess of like loads of monsters, and you're this character that has to fight the monsters. And I thought it was like a retro, like I don't know what I thought, like a shooter or a hack and slash or something.
Every time I see a screenshot, it just looks like an MPEG glitch. Like,
it's like a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah,
and I didn't really realise that this game, essentially, what you do is you just walk about. You just walk around, and all the stuff that goes on just happens. Like, so you're this character, and you just wander about the level, which like I think there's like 5 or 6 levels that you can unlock, and you wander about, and then an enemy will be there, and you don't ever press attack or shoot or whatever. You just the items that you have sort of equipped, which you don't choose, you just kind of pick as you go, and then they're there. They just fire off. They do their thing, and you're just there, kind of just moving about. So eventually, you get all these weapons that are incredibly high powered, multiple tiers of leveling, and you can evolve them and various other things to become like have this like incredible amount of firepower, essentially, including one that's just garlic. There's a garlic one, and you have this ring around you, which means you literally just walk through waves of enemies and just obliterate them. But all you ever do is walk around. You just walk around. Occasionally, you'll walk into a chest, and you'll get some stuff will unlock, and you'll get some coins, and then you do more interacting in the menus after the game than you do in the actual game, because after the game you kind of unlock upgrades that are permanent, and then in the game stuff just happens. As further you go, you get like level up your whip, and you level up your garlic, and level up your axe, and various other things. But all you really do is wander about and dodge enemies, and that's it. I spend a lot of the time just walking in circles, just going round and round in circles, just mopping up the edge of the enemy wave, just going around in circles. Sometimes I just put the Steam Deck down, just let it do some stuff for 5 minutes while I just like have a drink.
This is actually a really good pick.
I know it is.
Yeah,
I said
proud
to Jim.
of you.
I said to Jim that like last week that I was going to win the next two. Spoilers: I didn't win the first one.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a bit harsh, but this one, I'm pretty sure no one's going to beat this, because it is literally you can play it without doing anything, but the game itself is brilliant and everyone should play it, even though you don't do much at all.
I just really like when you said you occasionally walk into a chest.
Yeah.
That appeals to me a lot, just to sort of just passively just getting loot.
Yeah,
well, chaos happens around you,
and when you get the loot, you get this nice animation and music, and it builds up. You think, how long is this loot going to last for? And then it cuts off after a couple of seconds, or can go on for like 10 seconds, and the money just goes up and up and up.
Yeah.
And at the end, instead of leveling up, by the time you're like high level, all your weapons are maxed, you just get cash. You just go, give me the cash, give me the cash, give me the cash. Sometimes you're leveling up so quickly, it just constantly gives you the level up screen, because you've just killed so many things in like half a second, because you're firing off a billion things by literally doing nothing.
Yeah.
So for me, it's almost the perfect game.
It sounds like a really good game if you like.
It sounds good.
Like if you just sort of like very low effort serotonin hits.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
That's the
fair
name
enough.
of my first album.
All right. Fair enough.
Should we stop?
Should we pick something now?
7.5 minutes.
All right. Okay. That is a really good pick, actually. I've not played Vampire Survivors. It's been on the last episode. Alex mentioned when we were talking about FTL that usually when UK games journalists go off on one about a game, and I'm of the similar mind, where you see a bunch of people going off on one about some indie thing that looks absolutely shocking, and you're like, oh, fuck off.
Yeah, I had that happen earlier in the year, and I did avoid it because I thought, no, it looks terrible. I'm not playing this. But then when it came to Game Pass, I burnt my naan bread while it was cooking. Wonderful story on the website about that if you want to find it. So yeah, you should definitely play this. It is very good.
Yeah. All right. Lovely. Kelsey, what have you got for us?
Regrets. Lots of regrets. Because you mentioned Civ in your intro, and I'm just like, wow, why didn't I pick that? That was so much better. My pick is Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Yeah.
Because I can quite happily say that I've sank 200 hours into that and achieved nothing. So... People, to be fair, some people will spend that many hours and they will build like these amazing islands. But the fact that you can spend that many hours on that game and do pretty much nothing, it feels like I'm playing the game wrong. But it's kind of like that whole serotonin boost there. You go around, you speak to villagers, you hit trees, you collect fossils, all these small, minuscule tasks that honestly feel like chores on top of chores.
Yeah.
And yeah, like what actually amounts from it? You can build a cool island, but you totally don't have to. I didn't. So, and beyond that, there is nothing. You build things, you might craft things, but you have to do things to do that, and you don't actually have to do anything apart from earn some money to advance the game.
Sounds to me like you don't like this game very much.
I love it.
You're quite down on it. I mean, as selling it to someone, I'm like, I'm out already. Like you've literally.
I'm not trying to sell it to anyone.
Ever play? Well, it is the best games ever podcast. So I think you might want to sell it a bit.
Well,
but also the act of cutting down a tree is doing more than you ever do in Vampire Survivors. You have to.
I mean, I
press the
can't
button.
argue with that.
You
I
have to
can't
press the button,
argue with the
right?
Vampire Survivors
Let's
pick.
just move. Let's move on. We're done.
You don't have. You don't really have to even cut down trees if you don't want
No,
it in
you
Animal
don't.
Crossing. You could just kind of cut about and.
I've watched a video on someone who basically made their way through the game getting the house upgrades by doing as little as possible, and basically all they did every day was went to the beach, collected shells, and sold them. And that was it.
Sounds like a whole job. That's a proper job.
Well, when I played Animal Crossing, it was back during COVID when I was still a student and there was nothing else to do. So that's probably why I enjoyed it so much. I was like, wow, I have something to wake up for each day.
It is like the quintessential COVID game, isn't it?
Yeah,
it was like it just hit at that right time. I think it
Perfect
wasn't that the
timing.
reason why everyone bought a Switch during lockdown.
Yeah, pretty much. It wasn't.
Big part
I
of
swear
it.
there was a massive hike in like Switch sales, right?
Yeah.
When it came out.
Yeah, people giving themselves like the second job of like collecting oranges and
Yeah,
stuff.
because we had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
I like this.
So-
Everyone says they had nothing to do during lockdown. I was like super stressed and overworked the whole time.
I mean, I could have been.
Thanks for
So
that. Tom.
I resent people that say they had no work to do.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
they had nothing to do.
I like my level of busyness just never went down. In fact, I think over 2020, I think I got even more busy than usual.
Homeschooling. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
What
but,
a
like,
nightmare.
yeah, and I'd been working from home since like 2016 at that point, so just my life just didn't change that much, and I'm a fucking shut-in, so my life changed not a jot during lockdown.
That's my life too.
But yeah, because people were like, "Oh, isn't it scary having to sit in the house and all that?" And I was like, "That's just my life.
Yeah.
Everyone must think I hate my life. I love being where all my stuff is."
I feel the exact same way.
It was terrifying that society was collapsing. Animal Crossing, actually, we played it during lockdown when it came out as well, and it was fun for a bit, but I think I just ended up giving it to the kids.
Yeah.
I
I
just
do
end
like-
up falling off those games.
But, yeah.
After a while, I can't keep up the grind. If every time you pay off, Tom Nook's like, "Here's some more space."
Yeah.
Now you owe me another 200,000 bells.
Yeah. I quite like how it is a game where you can, as Kelsey says, just sort of passively kind of live in its world, and the NPCs and whatever, the game just kind of carries on ticking over around you.
Yeah.
Or you can build downtown Osaka, which people have done.
You can go wild and create these like beautiful sort of islands that people make, but the thing that I do like about it is, like you said, you can just passively either you can sink in hours of doing nothing, or you can spend a few minutes each day, but you can go ahead and like immerse yourself and feel involved in the game and the community without actually doing all that much.
Yeah. You can just sort of exist.
It's not like an exhausting game
Yeah.
for the most part.
I think there's a real there's a place for that. You know, just the kind of game where it just is a world that you can just sit about in, you know?
I think
choice
it is
so.
it's a good choice. It is a good choice. It's just not the best choice.
All right, let's move on to Alex, because I can't. This is such a tricky topic because Tom picked it based on having played this one game that he then proposed. So I'm like, is there even 3 or 4 games that this applies to? What have you got for us, Alex?
Well, I think there is, because there's a whole genre of this sort of stuff. Like there's stuff like Cookie Clicker, right? And there was a period in my life when I was actually quite into idle games, and you could argue that for morons, the ultimate idle game is trying to mine Bitcoin, right? But
Right.
for morons, I mean the people who got in early, fair enough. Anyone else who joined late in the game, morons.
Yeah,
That reminds me that I went to our local CEX recently, which is like actually they do have them in certain cities in America, but it's like a gaming thrift store. You go and trade stuff in, and you can get cash, or gaming pawn shop, and there was a guy there. I went in because they had a specific, and they know me in there, bless them, and the manager like DM'd me on Twitter going, "We've just had this copy of such and such a retro game that I was after in stock. Do do you want me to put it aside? And I was like, I'll come and have a look at it. I'll come and have a look at the nick. So I went in, and when I went in, there was a guy in there who was trading in like 20 graphics cards. And he was the guy getting out of Bitcoin mining. And I was chatting to him, and he just like, it took a massive bath on the last 2-3 months basically, and was like, I'm getting out now, I'm getting out. Yeah, but he was trading, and I was like, this is so, I said to the manager afterwards, I was like, this is so bad, because he was trading in all these graphics cards, and I was like, these have all been absolutely hammered through the process of Bitcoin mining. Like, you would not want to buy one of those and use it for gaming. The performance degradation from how it had been on for 24 hours, 7 days a week for however many months or years would have been enormous. And I think it's sort of irresponsible that CEA even takes stuff when the person who's selling it straight up says, yeah, I'll be using them for mining. But that's a topic for another time. But just, yeah, so anyway, I got sidetracked by talking about Bitcoin mining, which is the ultimate mugs idle game. But I wanted to pick something that wasn't an idle game. So I wanted to pick a game where it's a video game and it's not like all about just doing nothing. But the thing you're doing, you accomplish by doing very little.
Yeah.
And so I'm really proud of my pick for this. My pick is Dive Kick. So Dive Kick is a fighting game that only has 2 buttons. So there's dive, which is jump, and there's kick, which is kick. And when they used to demo this, they literally would have giant arcade sticks with 2 giant buttons, like 2 giant plungers. So rather than lots of little buttons and a stick, you can't move. So the way you would move forward is, and when kick doesn't do anything on the ground, kick only works from the air. So when you press dive, your character goes straight up, and when you press kick, your character comes down at an angle, like a dive kick, like what Cammy has in Street Fighter and certain other characters. And this was made by some fighting game community alumni at a time when characters that had dive kicks, like Rufus in Street Fighter 4, were like dominating the professional scene, and everyone was sick of seeing dive kicks. And almost as a joke, they made a game where you could only do dive kicks. But what's beautiful about Dive Kick is, even though it's a 2-button, 2-action game, it sort of boils down the meta of fighting games about when do you act, how do you react, perfectly. And it's so funny, so hilarious to play with people, and it carries all the joy of a Street Fighter or something like that. But there's no quarter circles forwards or back, there's no complicated moves. The only real difference between the characters is like in how high their jumps are, or how fast their dive kick is, or the exact angle. Like, some of them have really sharp, some of them have more 45-degree angles, and all the characters are parodies based on characters from other games, Marvel vs. Capcom, stuff like that. And it's just excellent. And like I say, it has this thing going for it of it's genuinely a really good 2D fighting game, but it only has 2 buttons, and you can only do basically 1 action or 2 actions. You can jump, and then when you're in the air, you can press a button to do a kick that goes towards the ground. Oh, and it's 1-hit KO. So the first person to land a dive kick clean wins the round. That's it.
Okay. That's incredible.
It's excellent. It's so good. And it is the best game where you barely do anything in that I could think of, where just like, because you legitimately just 1, 2, 1, 2. That's it.
I guess a lot of the time in rounds is just spent sort of jumping in front of each other.
And if you want to edge closer to
landing a hit.
Well, if you want to edge closer to someone to bait them out or something, the only thing you can do is keep doing ever so short jump dive kicks. Jump and kick in order to edge closer to them. Like I say, it's amazing because it's such a stupid, such a dumb concept. But it's also so good that it just works, and you can put that in front of people at a party or something, and people go absolutely wild for it. It's just, I absolutely adore it. It was such a popular, and I love the story of it as well, because it was legitimately like, these guys made it as a gag.
Yeah.
Because of the memes about dive kicks being too powerful in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Street Fighter 4, stuff like that. But then it became, and they were taking this joke game that they'd made to tournaments, and then it became so popular that it finally reached a publisher and a publisher picked it up, and then it actually got full releases, which is just fabulous. It's a great
I love
game.
that. I love it. And
The Steam reviews are fantastic. One, I was really disappointed in the punching system. They gave it a good review. Then, a perfect fighting game for the modern adult who has responsibilities.
isn't that the truth?
Yeah, well, that is the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like it sort of has the meta of fighting games in it, where you do actually think a little bit, and this is where I'm interpreting the topic perhaps a little bit liberally, but you do have to think quite a lot about things like footsies. There are footsies, even though you can't move back and forth.
Yeah.
But the only thing you can actually do is dive and kick, and so it carries that thing of the idea of it's a perfect game for perfect fighting game for an adult with responsibilities, is because you can sort of get that thrill that you get out of pulling off something clever in a fighting game match. But you don't have to learn any combos because there aren't any.
I love that.
Most balanced fighting game
It's
ever.
also a really good teaching tool. Like, if you give this game to somebody who wants to learn the fundamentals of fighting games about positioning and timing and stuff like that, it's perfect because it strips away everything else. It's such a good game.
That sounds brilliant.
And you barely do anything in it.
It's good. I remember playing this years ago. It is fun. I would just like to point out two things about Dive Kick, right? So in Dive Kick, you've got two actions, right?
Yeah.
Two buttons. You can jump and you can kick, right?
Yeah.
In Vampire Survivors, you don't have any buttons. It's an action game with no buttons.
I understand what you're saying, but I just want to point out the topic is not the best game where you don't do anything. It's the best game where you don't do much.
I know. You don't do much in Vampire Survivors. You walk around. That is the least anyone can do.
All right.
Unless you can't walk.
I'm gonna play that jingle. That means I need to pick something. I'm very sensitive about that jingle ever since you had a go at it, Tom. I do need to redo it. It was only ever intended as a placeholder, but I'm quite attached to it now, so it's staying.
Think, Jim, about all the messages I get about how unfair you are.
Oh, I would
think about the messages that are coming in for this podcast.
Because
I feel sorry for you right now because this is hard.
It's quite easy.
Right. Okay. Once again, three really good choices. Right. And I am absolutely because I vowed to never let Tom win again after last week and the discussion about how you always get loads of messages from people telling you were robbed. And then we actually got a bunch of messages off the back of that podcast about how you're always robbed and how it's always really unfair and about how I'm really mean, apparently. So I'm absolutely loath to do this, I have to say. But I do think Vampire... I haven't played any of these games, by the way. Well, New Horizons a little bit. But Vampire Survivors sounds like just the quintessential... it sounds like the epitome of this entire topic, and also it did actually inspire it, which might be slightly cheating. I don't know. Maybe that's
cheating, but I mean, who cares?
Because you might as well have gone, "What's the best game called Vampire Survivors?"
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I can't really, I can't argue with it. It probably should win, to be fair.
Yeah.
But
are you saying it is the winner then?
I'm saying it is the winner, but I'm loath to. I want it to be a hollow victory because I don't want it to win.
It's not that hollow. It's the same as all victories.
I want it to be hollow by pointing out that you based the topic off that game and basically did it backwards. And this is effectively this is abusing your position to
considering what has won on this podcast in the past.
This is one of the most legitimate wins of all time. I feel like FIFA and your Qatar at this moment, essentially.
Wow.
So I'm loath to do it, but yeah, I mean it's very difficult to argue against when you've rigged the game to this extent. So all right, fair enough. Vampire Survivors is the best game where you don't do much.
Yeah.
And also, it's really good as well. Like, you can't deny the amount of people who keep going on about how great it is. You can't. I mean, like, even like, you know, recent contributor Casey to the website, who basically doesn't like much. She's absolutely, like, she loves it, and I feel like if it wins her over, it's got to be good. I'm never going to play it because I now associate it with this humiliation, frankly.
You should play it, and then you'll be thinking to yourself, he was right.
No, I don't want to.
Play it on Christmas Day. On Christmas Day, as you're like trying to enjoy the day.
I don't want to.
And just think of me.
I just want to. I want to give you the win. All right. So, you know, like, it's like that episode of Come Dine With Me. Right, I want to give you the win, but I want to make it known to everyone that it's under protest and that you basically did cheat by rigging it.
He was cheating.
So,
Yeah.
so I hope you're happy, Tom.
Win's a win. Win's a win.
Like I said, you will find out in this here podcast.
If you enjoyed the show, please give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. It really helps us get the word out. We're not just a podcast, of course. If you'd like to hear more from the team, then check out VG247.com for our fantastic news coverage, features, reviews, and game guides. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.